Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 22nd, and I'm going to start with lesson one of Unit 5, which is the Presidencies of Washington and Adams. And really quickly, before I start with the notes, as someone who's learning YouTube and how YouTube works, looking at the video analytics, it sounds so fancy. Looking at the video analytics of my videos, I see my retention rate. I know these are really fancy, big YouTube analytics words, but the viewer rate or retention rate of my videos is like 35 to 40%, which means people are watching less than half of my videos, which I'm not offended, but if I make videos that are roughly 10 minutes or less and you're unable to watch the entire thing because that's too long, I really don't know how to make it much shorter for you. So, I am definitely not threatening anybody by any means, but if people are simply not going to watch these videos, I'm not going to take the time to make them. So if you just want me to send you the PowerPoint notes, you take the notes on your own, and we go from there, that's great. I like doing the screen recordings for notes because it gives me a chance to still somewhat teach, even though virtually, and it's a way for me to still somewhat engage with you, even though I'm not personally with you. So basically, I guess what I'm saying is if people aren't using the videos or aren't watching them, to put it as kindly as possible, I'm not going to waste my time making these. So hopefully I get some good viewership on this. I'm going to break this lesson into two parts so it doesn't go too long. Because again, even if my videos are like 8 minutes long, kids still are not watching the entire thing. So I understand people are important in life and there's a lot going on, but at the same time, I would prefer that people can take 8 minutes out of their day or out of their week to watch a simple notes thing. So, without further ado, here we go. Part one, the presidencies of Washington and Adams. So, of course, George Washington was our first president after we won the Revolutionary War, and John Adams will be our second. So, what did America look like in 1790? Again, this is post-Revolutionary War. We are predominantly a rural society, meaning not a lot of cities, not a lot of huge populations in cities, a lot of farmers, a lot of people growing crops out in the country. So 80% of households were involved in agricultural production. There were 750,000 African Americans in America at this time, which made up 20% of the population, or 1 out of every 5. And most lived in the South. Out of the African American population, about 10% lived in the North or on the frontier. So we had to begin a new government. We obviously won the Revolutionary War, but now what? Now we need to start a new government and decide how are we going to run our country. We didn't like how England was doing it, but now how are we going to do it? So Congress convenes in March 4th of 1789, and they vote for a president. And of course, spoiler alert, they vote George Washington in. George Washington gets 70 electoral votes, whereas John Adams only gets 34 electoral votes. Now, during this time period, whoever finished second in the presidential election automatically became vice president, which is really interesting because you just campaigned against somebody and now you're going to be the vice president for them. So imagine if in the 2016 presidential election, Hillary Clinton took second place. Imagine Hillary Clinton being President Trump's vice president. Probably wouldn't work. And Thomas Jefferson's going to eventually get rid of this, so there's no longer that awkwardness. But at this time period, that's still how it was. The Bill of Rights is adopted by Congress and then ratified or accepted by the states in 1791. And of course, the Bill of Rights, again, are the first 10 amendments of our U.S. Constitution. Alexander Hamilton, I know we've heard a lot about him. We've talked a lot about him with the musical and some stuff in Unit 4, but we're going to quickly put a bow on Alexander Hamilton because, again, the reason a musical was made after him was because he was very important in the start of our government system. So again, he was a Federalist and he was the first Secretary of the Treasury in Washington's cabinet. He said war debt was a national responsibility to be paid by all of the states since all benefited. So basically he's saying, look, not every state was directly involved in the Revolutionary War. However, every state now is free because we won the Revolutionary War. So all of the states should have to help pay for the war debt because they all benefited from the war being won by the Americans and the French during the Revolutionary War. So he called for a national assumption of states' debts, and this also built a sense of American nationalism, meaning, hey, we should all unite, come together, and help pay these debts. that we had to spend during the Revolutionary War. And this caused some controversy because most debt was held by the Northerners because that's where a lot of the warfare took place, and sharing it didn't seem fair to the South. Again, Thomas Jefferson, being from Virginia, was one of the individuals who did not agree with all of the states having to pay for the war debt. Hamilton and the National Bank, so he wants to start a national bank that could print national currency and take care of the war debt. If you remember from Unit 4, for a while, states were printing their own individual money, which did not work out for trade or for just people traveling from state to state. They didn't know what each dollar was worth, didn't make a lot of sense. So he wanted a national currency and a national bank. And this would be a source for expanding capital and a growing economy. And argues that the bank is necessary and therefore falls under Article 1 of the Constitution. And we will talk about the Article 1 of the Constitution here in a couple slides. Actually, this slide. So Jefferson and the National Bank. Jefferson disagrees with this idea on a national bank, and he argues that the bank does not fall under Article 1's necessary and proper clause. So Article 1 meaning that the government can put things in place that are found to be necessary and proper. Hamilton says a bank is necessary and proper. Jefferson argues it is not. James Madison and Anti-Federalists also led an opposition against this, saying it's unconstitutional to start a national bank. It goes to a vote. Northern reps voted 33-1 for a bank. Southern reps voted 19-6 against it. With that being said, it passed, and now we're going to have a national bank. And this led to the question of a strict or broad interpretation of the Constitution. So, Hamilton and his national bank. Washington accepts Hamilton's argument that the government had the right to charter certain institutions, whether or not they were clearly defined in the Constitution, that being a national bank. And the national bank was created and overseen by federal government, but 80% of it financed by outside investors. So this will be the last slide for part 1 of lesson 1 of the notes. So Hamilton's legacy. This will be the end of us talking about Hamilton. He enhanced the value of the dollar, again, by creating that bank, secured the government's credit. He attracted foreign capital. Again, other countries wanted to see that we had a stable government system and a stable economy before they would start trading with us. And this led to flourishment in our economy and allowed people to prosper. Some of his weaknesses. He never really understood the people of the farms and the frontier. Hamilton was an individual who was often living in the cities and was often in the cities as being a lawyer. And he married into a rich family, the Schuyler family. So didn't really know a ton about how the people on the farms and the frontier lived their lives. And also he was accused of being an elitist, meaning he kind of felt like he was better than everybody else, which again can help you make some poor decisions when you're trying to make decisions for the good of everybody and not just the good of the few. So that will wrap up lesson 1. And really quickly, what I'm going to post moving forward, I'm going to have you complete guided notes pages for a grade. Now, it will be a minimal grade, but it'll still be a grade nonetheless. So, simply going through these notes, I will post the slides as well as, of course, this YouTube video, and you will simply have to fill in the blanks with the correct response. And then once you're done with that, you will turn it in. Again, it's going to be a small grade, but I just want to make sure you're engaging with the work and you're actually taking the notes and you're not just skipping it. And I could not make it much easier than by giving you the actual guided notes page. So hopefully this helps. That'll be on Google Classroom today, Wednesday, April 22nd, and I'm going to make those notes due this Friday, April 24th. Thank you for listening. Again, I'm going to try to keep these short and sweet. And part 2 will come out most likely Friday and will be due early next week. Thank you. Have a great rest of your day.